than it was years ago. As we explore the behavior pattern of children, we recognize the individuality and discover the many influences and issues that may lie upon the tendencies of their behavior as displayed through peer pressure, underlying mental issues, and lack of attention from our parents. How many times have we spotted kids doing things they have no business doing or being disrespectful to an authority figure? We often say or may hear others respond by saying, "I swear, when I was that age, my mom would have beat my behind." Or, "When I was a child, my mom and dad would have slapped me across the floor." We all have an opinion on child behavior, but let's assume that children today are more problematic than children in the past. Could this be a result of bad parenting? Or is it safe to say that they are faced with many issues such as pressures of society, mental health issues, and maybe lack of attention? We will interview a few people and discuss through questions about child behavior and receive opinions on this topic. Do you think child behavior has gotten better or worse over the years? And what do you think are the contributing factors?
I think that child behavior has indeed gotten worse over the years, and contributing factors, it varies, ranging from the economy and how parents really don't have enough time because they are so consumed with their work duties that they aren't able to actually sit down to have at least a 5-minute conversation with their child about what happened during their day. There are also factors that weigh in as far as peer pressure, where other children are wanting to be or do the things that other children are doing, and you may not conduct this behavior in your own home. So there are many underlying issues as far as children and their behaviors go, even with young parents bringing up children, and there are years apart maybe in age, maybe 14, 15 years, but even that weighs in as far as a young child giving birth to a child themselves and having to raise this child without having the proper values or morals instilled in them as to what a parent should be or consist of.
Do you know children that suffer from mental issues that were perceived as problematic students or children? And if so, is there a difference in the treatment?
Yes, there is a major difference in the treatment of children that are treated with mental illnesses. Some people deal with ADHD, children that are hyper. And sometimes it's not the fact that children are hyper. Sometimes even within the school elements, the teachers aren't teaching at a rate in which a child can anticipate learning it. They may already know some of the things that a teacher is applying to in their studies, and at this point it becomes boring to the student. But because the student is bored and is not consistent as far as paying attention to the subject that the teacher may be teaching, it causes a problem, and the student is then labeled as a problematic student because at this point what you're teaching to me is boring or I already have knowledge of. As opposed to children that are already mentally challenged, you have certain teachers that enter the profession that don't have the patience to at least try to teach these children, which becomes problematic in itself, because this is a child at this point that is now lacking the skills or education that they may need because of a teacher not having the patience to deal with this issue that this child may be facing.
So do you think the pressures of today's society add an influx to the behaviors displayed through our youth?
Yes, indeed. It's especially with young girls, young men too. But I'm speaking upon young girls because you have these image issues, and some children are very fortunate where they're able to wear labeled clothes, or they may be just naturally beautiful, as opposed to the next female who's not able to afford the labeled clothes and who's able to wear what their parents can merely afford. And sometimes it becomes an issue where this may entice a child to either try to steal or take something that does not belong to them. On top of that, when a child is not being esteemed at home or in the household, image issues arise.
So in your household, do you believe in punishments and spankings? And do you think that this would help or hinder your child's mental growth?
Most definitely. I do believe that all children should have some form of discipline, to each its own as far as how you choose to discipline your children. But as for me, if it calls for me to apply a spanking, I'm not going to abuse my child. But at the end of the day, I feel like discipline is very important. When you go on a job and enter society, you're going to have to abide by rules and regulations and know that there are consequences that come along with abiding by your rules and regulations. And if you aren't implementing those at home, then later on when your child becomes an adult, or even as a teenager or a child just in general, they're not going to respect authority. So I feel like any form of discipline is great when it comes to your children.
Have parenting practices changed, and if so, why?
A lot of parenting practices have changed, and I feel like it is due to the fact, two things I'm going to say in my opinion. Some parents are single parents, and it requires them to have a lot of time spent at work where, like I said in the beginning, there's not much time allotted for the child to have one-on-one time with their parent to explain what their day consisted of or how they were affected during the day, whether it was in a negative or positive way. And another example of the parenting being different is because at this point, society has taking discipline in another direction where it's not safe to even discipline your child in public or reprimand them in public before social services is called, because you don't want your child doing something that they have any business doing. So at that point, it ties the parents' hand behind their backs where discipline is not taken serious.
As we conclude this interview with Mrs. Yolanda Banks, we want to thank you for sharing your opinions and your thoughts with us. So thank you so much.